The highest court in America just delivered a verdict that fundamentally reshapes firearms seizure authority across the nation. Picture this scenario. Law enforcement officers knock on your door, walk inside your residence, and remove your weapons. There's no warrant in hand, no criminal charge filed, no life-threatening emergency unfolding, just concerns about potential risk based on someone's subjective judgment. Does that scenario violate your constitutional protections? Many courts said no, until a unanimous Supreme Court decision changed everything. The justices ruled with complete agreement, restricting governmental power to confiscate firearms from private residences. And the ripple effects of this legal precedent could impact millions of Americans who own weapons. Today, we're examining exactly what the court determined and why gun owners nationwide need to understand these new boundaries. What connections exist between this case and previous victories for Second Amendment advocates? Which jurisdictions face potential challenges to their existing policies? We'll explore the constitutional boundaries now governing residential entry and weapon removal, and reveal why advocates are pushing to broaden this ruling's reach even further. This is Firearm Legal Briefing. Show your support by liking this video and subscribing to remain informed on critical developments. Act 1. The incident that triggered a constitutional showdown. This groundbreaking judicial opinion stems from Caniglia versus Strom, a case presenting fundamental questions about constitutional boundaries. Back in 2015, Edward Caniglia had a heated disagreement with his spouse in Rhode Island. Worried about his psychological well-being, she contacted authorities the following morning. Officers arrived and convinced Caniglia to accept a mental health assessment, but then proceeded to enter his residence without obtaining judicial authorization and removed 2 handguns from the premises. Critical facts worth noting. Law enforcement justified their actions by citing a community caretaking responsibility. No criminal activity had occurred. No immediate threat existed. The weapons were confiscated absent any warrant, arrest, or voluntary permission. Caniglia filed suit, claiming an obvious violation of Fourth Amendment protections. The litigation climbed through judicial levels for several years. Initial rulings favored police authority, but when the nation's highest court agreed to hear arguments, the trajectory shifted dramatically. Their unified verdict reaffirmed that residential privacy holds sacred constitutional status. Act 2. Breaking down the court's unanimous verdict. In May 2021, the United States Supreme Court delivered a unanimous opinion striking down the application of community caretaking principles to justify entering homes without warrants and seizing firearms. Justice Clarence Thomas authored the majority opinion, stating that such governmental actions clearly violated Fourth Amendment safeguards against unreasonable intrusions and property seizures. Essential principles established. The justices determined no sweeping caretaking exemption exists for private dwellings. Officers retain authority to enter during genuine emergencies or with proper judicial authorization. The ruling draws sharp distinctions between automobile stops and residential protections under constitutional law. The court emphasized that homes receive the most robust level of constitutional defense available. Your home receives the highest constitutional shield the law provides. This verdict effectively eliminated a troubling legal gap. Prior to this litigation, lower judicial bodies had permitted expansive readings of police authority, something the Supreme Court decisively rejected. Act 3. Restoring constitutional protections in daily practice. For generations, Fourth Amendment safeguards had eroded through unclear judicial theories and inconsistent application across jurisdictions. This ruling restores the amendment's core mission, shielding citizens from governmental home invasions, absent proper procedures, or genuine emergency circumstances. Key implications moving forward. Caniglia versus Strom reinforces the constitutional requirement for obtaining search warrants. The verdict narrows permissible exceptions like psychological wellness interventions or safety checks. Government agents must now follow more rigorous constitutional protocols. This decision raises the standard for any future weapons confiscation litigation nationwide. Essentially, the verdict revitalizes Fourth Amendment protections. It sends unmistakable signals to police departments that procedural shortcuts justified by public safety rhetoric cannot override constitutional mandates. Act 4. How this affects gun owners everywhere. Though this litigation began in Rhode Island, its ramifications extend to every American state. The ruling directly constrains how municipal police and state officials can handle psychological crisis calls or domestic conflicts involving weapons. Jurisdictions with extreme risk protection orders or welfare check policies face fresh constitutional scrutiny. Fundamental changes required. States must overhaul procedures that depended on caretaking rationale. Extreme risk laws permitting residential entry without warrants may fail constitutional tests. Weapon owners now possess stronger legal foundations to resist improper confiscation attempts. Law enforcement must demonstrate actual danger or secure judicial orders before taking action. Constitutional protection of home possession now demands proper legal process before removal. This transcends courtroom theory. It's a beacon. Gun owners nationwide now understand that weapon possession inside your dwelling enjoys constitutional protection, and removal demands due process. Act 5. State resistance and creative reinterpretation. Despite this ruling, certain jurisdictions are exploring innovative methods to circumvent its constraints. California, New York, Oregon, and other jurisdictions favoring restrictive gun policies are testing emergency exception language to maintain warrantless firearm confiscation capabilities, a strategy likely to spark additional litigation. Important developments. California legislators are designing psychological emergency carve-outs. New York accelerates extreme risk seizures through expedited judicial orders. States are repackaging community caretaking concepts under alternative terminology. Second Amendment advocacy organizations are already preparing new legal challenges, leveraging this precedent. The battlefield has transformed. While the Supreme Court established firm boundaries, some states attempt to redraw the territory. But with unanimous judicial support, constitutional challenges will likely gain traction and prevail. Act 6. Implications for extreme risk protection orders. Extreme risk protection orders represent among the most debated mechanisms for temporarily removing weapons from individuals considered dangerous. Following the Supreme Court's unanimous ruling, the legal framework supporting these laws' enforcement, particularly absent warrants, faces mounting pressure. Crucial considerations: most extreme risk statutes authorize weapon seizure based on allegations rather than proven offenses. Numerous states allow residential entry without complete warrants under risk protection orders. This verdict challenges any seizure lacking imminent danger justification or proper judicial process. Statutes relying on ambiguous psychological concerns may now be unconstitutional. The Caniglia decision compels reconsideration of extreme risk enforcement mechanisms. Weapon owners now have reinforced constitutional grounds to challenge raids and removals, bypassing proper procedures. Act 7. Mandatory changes in police training protocols. Police departments nationwide have long trained personnel to operate under community caretaking exceptions, especially during welfare interventions or psychological crisis responses. That doctrine now faces severe limitations, necessitating significant protocol revisions. Required adjustments. Agencies must retrain officers regarding proper Fourth Amendment compliance. Officers cannot seize weapons during wellness interventions without emergency justification. Voluntary consent or warrants become essential for entering private dwellings. Departments failing to adapt risk litigation exposure or evidence suppression. This ruling extends beyond courtrooms into operational practice. Every officer, sheriff, and department must adapt to this constitutional recalibration or face legal consequences. Act 8. Potential growth through subsequent litigation. The Supreme Court's unanimous decision has already generated significant momentum, but legal experts predict this represents just the beginning. Similar cases across other states, including Texas, Illinois, and California, now reference Caniglia versus Strom as controlling precedent. Emerging patterns. New lawsuits test the ruling's boundaries regarding broader weapon-related seizures. Appellate tribunals cite this case when deciding residential search questions. Some judges have already reversed firearm removals, relying on this decision. Second Amendment lawyers build momentum toward expanded protections. This isn't a singular victory. It's the initial domino in cascading legal challenges, potentially redefining how state and federal authorities regulate weapon possession within homes. Act 9. Protecting veterans and mental health wellness checks. Among the most frequently overlooked populations affected by unconstitutional seizures are military veterans, many facing wellness checks due to PTSD or emotional difficulties. Historically, numerous veterans had firearms confiscated without proper justification. Critical protections. Veterans face disproportionate targeting in mental health-based confiscations. This ruling provides stronger legal defenses for veterans against unlawful seizures. Veterans organizations raise awareness about rights under the Caniglia decision. Cases involving VA referrals or medical wellness calls may now require judicial approval. This decision helps eliminate a painful gap affecting thousands of responsible veterans. It reinforces that military service doesn't erase constitutional protections at home. Act 10. The future landscape of firearm rights. The Supreme Court's unanimous ruling isn't the conclusion. It's the foundation for constitutional transformation. Now that the court has re-established limits on warrantless residential entry and firearm confiscation, the challenge shifts to how lower courts, state legislatures, and advocacy organizations advance this precedent. Path forward. Second Amendment groups already leverage this ruling in legal challenges nationwide. States must revise policies allowing residential entry without warrants. Future litigation will likely expand this decision's scope into related domains. Weapon owners must remain engaged and comprehend their complete legal protections. This ruling provides Americans a constitutional shield, but that shield only functions when citizens understand how to wield it. Education, legal awareness, and civic engagement now define the next battleground. Every sheriff, judge, and elected official must be held accountable to this elevated legal standard. The Second and Fourth Amendments have been reaffirmed, but their endurance depends on subsequent actions and how vigorously we defend them. A transformative moment for constitutional rights. This decision exceeds technical legal analysis. It's a forceful statement that residential sanctity remains intact, that rights demand respect, and that governmental authority has boundaries. For years, Fourth Amendment parameters were obscured by vague judicial doctrines, but the Supreme Court has now redefined them clearly, unanimously, and supporting individual liberty. Weapon owners across every state must stay vigilant, educated, and empowered. Your firearms aren't merely protective instruments. They're part of constitutionally defended rights. This channel exists to guide you through these developments. No partisan spin, no political agenda, just straightforward legal analysis affecting your future. If this video provided value, Hit that like button for Firearm Law Advisor and share it with fellow defenders of constitutional rights. Because this isn't the conclusion of the narrative. It's the opening chapter in defending the Second and Fourth Amendments.